This is the most lucrative job I've ever seen. With the rod jerked, a water giant has taken the bait. It's not a pretty married young woman. It's tuna, known as the king of thorns. Do you know how much money you can make from a tuna like this? If the fish is fat enough, easily sold for more than $10,000. Making $1 million a month is like an old woman gnawing on a bone. It's just 2 days into the tuna season. One team has already caught 2 tuna, but the average haul is just over $11,000. The first place Taylor team made $12,232 in the first 35 minutes of the season. It's after 5 a.m. on the 3rd day. Dave's team is out fishing. He caught only 1 tuna in 2 days. I have a week's worth of expenses. They use mackerel as bait. This fish is called miniature tuna. It's like a little motor that vibrates really hard. So far, Dave is very confident that he can win the championship this season. It's not the last day. These captains are mindless self-confident. The weather is not very good today. The sea was foggy in the morning. There's a boat coming up nearby. This is Paul's team. Paul used to hang out with Dave. He now owns his own fishing boat. It was beginning to get light. The detector beeped. A tuna appeared nearby. Soon the rod began to be yanked. The early bird does catch the worm. Paul died of envy when he heard the news. If you catch this fish today, you can leave early. The line was pulled pretty hard. This tuna is very strong. It never expected. I just have breakfast and I can't go back. Jay's got a harpoon in his hand. When it came to the surface, it was a direct hit, but it's still very strong. It's a hell of a breakfast. I wouldn't eat from strangers if I knew. Jay is happy to explode in place. It's only been 3 days. They caught 2 tuna. Dave's even more confident now that he's going for the title. He called Paul, who was nearby. He left work before the sun came up in the morning. The unbeknownst thought he was working the night shift. Oh, and I'm jealous of the girls here. They hauled the tuna up, only 86 inches. I mean average size. This fish has enough money to keep them flat for a week. Otter and his men also came to the fishing spot. There are 56 fishing boats here. The competition is considerable. If it were me, or come early, or we can go a little further away. Teammates saw a whale in the vicinity. There's a good chance of catching tuna. The detector beeped. ODT thinks it's probably just mackerel. Taylor is currently number 1. He caught his first fish, made more than $12,200. This money is enough to cover their living expenses for a month. Today, I went fishing with my sister. Soon there was a sound from the probe. A tuna appeared nearby. The display marks look large. Suddenly, the fishing rod was jerked. The big ones are already on the hook. The brother and sister are really lucky. The first day, there was a big shipment. I haven't spent all the money I made. And now the fish are being served again. Sister is tightening the fishing line. Tyler's steering the boat. They saw the bait tuna. It's really big. Tyler needs to steer the boat closer to the fish. This is a big shipment. It needs to wear out before it can pull up. There are a lot of markers nearby. If the tuna line gets tangled up with a marker, that's a problem. Their current situation is not ideal. This tuna is big. I've been in a standoff with them. When the sister pulled the fish close to the boat, Tyler attacked with a harpoon. The tuna swam under the boat. We have to keep challenging for position. Finally, with their efforts, got the fish back. They succeeded in harvesting a tuna. The caught tuna needs to be cooled down underwater. The other teams got the news and began to envy again. It's worse to see other people make money than to lose it. This tuna is only 94 inches, but it has a very big belly. This means that the fish is fat. They immediately returned to Hong Kong to sell fish. Dave, they're back in port. This is their second fish of the season. It's also one of the biggest fishing teams. The tuna returned to port needs to be evaluated for quality. The quality of the fish determines its price. The fish weighed 217 pounds. That's not a lot of weight. Next comes the quality of the fish. Fish fat accumulates under the corners of the skin. The color of the fish is good. The buyer offered only $17 a pound. The price of $15 per pound is the lowest. $17 is clearly not ideal. They collected just over $3,600 in revenue. They caught this fish off the coast. So in terms of cost performance, it is still more cost-effective. This fish is not fat though. Dave felt satisfied. Marcia, they're looking for a tuna spot. He took his son and nephew out fishing. He felt gratified that the children were working hard. 3 days into the fishing season, but they never caught any fish. Go on like this. The kids are losing money on wives. Taylor's back in port. Today they went fishing in an empty place. That's why we have such good luck. This is their second fish. It is also one of the most profitable teams at present. This fish doesn't look big. It weighs 406 pounds, twice as heavy as Dave's fish. The next step is to assess the quality of the fish. The buyer said the fish had a very high fat content. The core of the fish is perfect. The buyer offered $23 a pound. They earned more than $9,300 for the fish. The price of the first fish is $22. These brothers and sisters are really good. Over $20,000 in just 3 days. $1 million a month is not a dream. Victory for 2 fish in a row. Give them both confidence in their future. OTT and his crew went fishing in Stellwagen today and found nothing. Got word that Tyler and his crew caught 2 big fish in Maine. They too decided to try their luck. It's going to give Tyler and his team a run for their money. Paul, they waited all day today. Dave caught a tuna here this morning, although the fish is small, but even the smallest fly is meat. I really want to catch a fish. He still has plenty of bait. These mackerel are all alive. It's Tuna's favorite food. Suddenly the detector made a noise. A tuna is 70 meters below the surface. Suddenly the rod was yanked. After waiting so long, the tuna finally took the bait. His teammates bared their teeth in delight. You have to wait before you hook up. At this time of year, the tuna has plenty of energy. It's easy to break if you reel it in. Let it wear off before retracting. When the fish is pulled to the surface, Paul attacked the tuna with a harpoon, just as they were bringing the hook back, due to improper operation of teammates, causing Tuna to go crazy again. Paul spat at his teammate. The fish is already in the spear, but I just couldn't get it. Paul was so angry he wanted to hit someone. It's clear that this year's teammate is inexperienced. When the tuna is pulled to the surface again, teammates attack again with harpoons. This time the fish was successfully controlled. Tie the tail with a rope. When they saw the size of the fish, let out a laugh of surprise. This fish is very big. If nothing happens, this fish should be the biggest of the season so far. Cook observed Paul's condition. Really envy. Jack and they were just as jealous. When they pull the fish into the boat, to see that this fish is really big. It's 117 inches long, almost 3 meters of big tuna. They caught their longest fish of the season. If the fish is fat enough, I'm sure I make over $10,000. When they returned to the port, they immediately began to sell fish. The buyer uses a crane to lift the fish. Keep saying it's a big one. While cutting, you can see the fat content of the fish. This fish should fetch a high price. It weighs 583 pounds. It surprised me. In proportion to length, it's not as fat as Taylor's. This link is actually the buyer bargaining link. This fish is big though, but no fat. They offered a low price of $15 a pound, but it still makes Paul fly. The big fish brought in just over $8,700. But this is also a very optimistic income. OTT, they waited all day for nothing. They moved to a less crowded seat this morning. Teammates think that the reason may have been the hot water in the previous position has not been on the fish. Soon the probe beeped. The line was immediately yanked. It's not quite light yet. They don't know if it's tuna. OTT thinks there are sharks nearby. This fish pulls the line pretty hard anyway. If it was a shark, then I'll be embarrassed enough to shit in my place. They had to hope it wasn't a shark. If it's tuna, then this must be a big one too. The fishing rod was pulled very hard. This is the first time I've seen this. If it's tuna, how big that must be. If it's not as big as Paul's, it's going to be fat. Only a heavy fish would pull that hard. There's a second boat at 10 meters. Teammates called them to leave. If it's someone else's fault for this fish, that would be very costly. After some persistence from his teammates, the tuna is quickly pulled to the surface. OTT takes the harpoon and hits it. They waited all day for the fish. It's all worth it now. When they managed to contain the fish, the hanging heart was finally laid down. Today is another happy day. After pulling the fish into the boat, it measured 109 inches. That's a big fish. They average a fish every 2 days. Girl group this way. There were no fish for 4 consecutive days. I see people serving fish every day. And myself, since the beginning of the fishing season, there's been no harvest. When Taylor got the news, feel very angry because I was jealous when someone else served fish. Taylor's one of the most profitable teams at the moment. Why is he jealous of other people? OTT, and they returned to port. Claims to have caught a monster. But little did he know that Paul and his men had caught much closer. Big fish don't always sell well. It needs to be evaluated by a shady buyer. The fish weighed 496 pounds. It's pretty big, but the fat content determines the unit price. The sides of fish contain more fat. The buyer offered $21 a pound. That's a total of more than $10,400. The price is considerable. Now 5 boats have caught 2 fish. The rest of these people are really in a hurry. Cook brought a lot of bait on board today. I'm not worried about catching any fish. Dave did catch 2 fish though, but they're all very small. Suddenly, there was a noise from the detector. A big fish is near. Cook noticed too. Dave's side soon begins to pull the rod. Next thing you know, Cook's fishing rod is on. Is the tuna in a group this time? Dave guessed that the fish should be about 100 inches. It swam back and forth under the water. Teammates think this fish is crazy. The fish on Cook's side have been pulled to the surface. As you can see, it's very large. Both teams are now on their 3rd fishing trip. If I can catch them all. So the 2 boats that fish the most. What Cook's got here is a big haul. The tuna keeps swimming out. The fishing line was stretched out. I managed to pull it back to the boat. My teammate couldn't hit it. I had to wait for another chance. 2 misses in a row. This is really scary. The fish also swam farther and farther. The standoff continued for about an hour and a half. The longer it goes on, the more dangerous it gets. The fishing rod was pulled very hard. The line went straight out. What a joy for nothing. They became the first fishing vessel to dishook this season. They go from anticipation to excitement, and then to surprise and despair. That's what I love most about it. Cook was so angry he wanted to smash his phone, and Dave's still in a standoff. It's a matter of luck to catch it. When you pull the fish closer, another familiar 2-piece. They've managed to catch a 3rd tuna. They guessed the fish was over 100 inches. Dave told Cook the news. Cook said they were decoupled. I was already angry. Plus the news of Dave's successful fishing. Cook can explode right where he is. When they pull the tuna up, this fish is 110 inches long. This is definitely a big one. Hurry back to port and sell your fish. They learned that Otter had gone 85 miles and caught a big fat fish. Maybe they'll follow in the next. Dave thinks the fish will fetch a good price. The moment you cut through the fish. I also think the price of this fish will be very high. The tuna weighed 467 pounds. There's nothing to say about the end. When I saw this piece of meat, I want to pick it up and eat it. Surprisingly, the buyer offered only $16 a pound. The fish sold for just over $7,400. His grandmother is a dog with legs. Fish with so much fat. It's $16 a pound. This is definitely a shady buyer. You can tell Dave and his crew aren't very happy. I wouldn't sell to this kind of shady guy. Marcia hasn't had any fish in days. I see people taking fish over and over. The waiting is the hardest part. Days when you don't catch any fish. Every day is a loss. Cook is also very anxious. He missed a big fish today. The day had not yet passed, which means there's still a chance. Face the big fish lost today. I can't even taste instant noodles now. Suddenly the probe beeped again. The fish tank was jerked. Cook's fish for the 2nd time today. I wonder if I can catch him this time. As long as it's a lucky job. I don't even have the face to give it to God. This time, they did not appear too excited. Maybe he learned his lesson last time. They're afraid of how excited they are right now, how desperate it's going to be. His teammates slowly pulled in the line before you can pull the fish out of the water. Is it impossible to tell what kind of fish has taken the bait? Cook and his team guessed it was probably a shark, but I kept thinking about tuna. It's late afternoon and the light isn't very good. Teammates keep tightening the line. Take the harpoon and attack it at any time. But it didn't seem to hit. It's not going to happen again. If I don't catch this one again, I think Cook's going to chop up a teammate and feed it to the sharks. They took a harpoon and hit it several times. This time the tuna is finally under control. This fish looks pretty big too. I wonder if it's the one that got decoupled this morning. Cook's team became the second boat to catch 3 fish. It's a fun day anyway, okay. When the girls and Marcia heard it was another fatal blow. The tuna needs to be measured after it is pulled onto the fishing boat. This fish is only 90 inches. They were quite happy. Back at the port, it's fish time again. Every time to sell fish environment is very much looking forward to its price. Fish evaluation is the most critical step in this process. The fish weighs only 255 pounds. It's the size of a small fish. The whole core of the fish is bright red, but not terribly fat. Very little subcutaneous fat. This means that the price of the fish is not very high. The buyer offered $21 a pound. He's got legs. What happened to having very little fat? Such a divine reversal is beyond my comprehension. They made over $5,300 today. This little fish is really good value for money. Here's how many fish each fleet caught and how much money they made. What surprises do the contestants have in store for us next? Look forward to an update in the next video. This is definitely the fattest tuna of the season. The buyer offered a high unit price of $23. A tiny tuna just 79 inches in size. I can't believe what I've learned. It really paid off. We're a week into the season. The first place winner earned $21,570. Second place earned $20,611. The 2 worst boats never harvested. I really lost my pants. Marcia goes out fishing before dawn every day, but the luck was very bad. He suspects this year may be the worst yet, but also hoping for a reversal today. They were beginning to lose faith in the early stories about the birds getting the worms. They met a lot of mackerel today. These are the tuna's favorite bait. There's been no fishing here at Marcia. Did he ever think it might be the green hat on his head? Dave and his men have been waiting at sea. They have caught 3 tuna now, but they're all very small. Paul was near them. The 2 were always in competition. He used to work for him. Now they're their own competition. Before the fish is served, they need to catch some mackerel as live bait. OTT and his men are fishing in the distance again today. They believe as long as there are fewer people in the position, you have a better chance of catching tuna. Their current harvest is very good. Tyler has been fishing here until now. They are in first place at the moment. I didn't catch the biggest tuna, but they're so fat that they sell for a lot of money. And OTT came along for a little soup. There's no competition here. Better chance of catching a fish. Tuna are usually 150 meters deep. The line will float if you don't use the pendant. Only the right pendant can be used to reach the desired position. Soon the detector detects the presence of tuna. OTT's heart was lifted in an instant, waiting for this fish to bite. Suddenly the line began to be yanked. The tuna finally took the bait. There aren't any fishing boats around, you know. The first fish to bite the hook is very strong. It has to be exhausted. This is a great test of the fisherman's skill. The opponent keeps tightening the line. OTT is reorienting the boat. Teammates are waiting with harpoons. When the fish surface, they'll have a chance to attack. Teammates didn't make it the first time. The tuna is right in front of you. Fortunately, there was no strength left. Soon they succeeded in controlling the fish. The sun wasn't up in the morning. They harvested 1 fish. That's a pretty cool return. This tuna is very big. It's 106 inches. They immediately returned to Hong Kong to sell fish. Tyler's around too. They got word of Otter's fish. This made him feel very angry. I had no idea I'd driven over 60 miles to pick a fishing spot, being followed by them. It's like someone else taking your fish. He needs a big fish right now to stay in first place. The girl group side is the worst. They never serve the fish. Bait changed hundreds of times with no luck. The fish sisters are going through menopause. Cook and his crew just arrived at the fishing spot. Drop the anchor into the water. They have caught 3 fish so far. It's one of the most fished boats. There are a lot of fishing boats around them. This is very competitive. They use mackerel as bait every time. Keep the fishing boat as far away as you can. This will improve the chances of getting the fish. Soon there was a noise from the probe. It's not even a minute. The rod starts to get yanked. His teammates shouted excitedly. Girl group also saw Cook serve the fish. Why does the fish always get other people? When do I get to fuck myself? If Cook and his crew succeed on this fishing trip, then they will have a 4th tuna. I have to say their luck is really good. The teammates slowly pulled the line. The line was pulled very far. There's a boat nearby. Their maneuvering is likely to cause the fish to unhook, because this fish is swimming towards the other boat. One fish can keep them flat for a month. You can imagine how important tuna is to them. This tuna is very big. It keeps trying to swim out. As his teammates keep pulling in the line, the tuna was pulled close to the boat. His team harpooned him. It's almost certain that they've got the tuna, but this fish is still strong. When you pull it back in again, his teammate gave him another shot. 10 lives won't be enough this time. They tied the tail with rope, which means we can leave early again today. Congratulations to the girl group. I really want their fish to be unhooked. This fish is very big today. It measured 101 inches. Looks like a big fat fish. Otter and his men have returned to port. They were the first to leave work today. The tuna was bigger. The next step is to assess the quality of the meat. The tuna weighed 528 pounds. That's enough weight. What about the meat? The flesh of this fish is quite beautiful. The unscrupulous merchant offered a unit price of $18 per pound. They raked in $9,504. This is exciting enough to harvest. OTT thinks it's a free gift. After all, the cost is too low. Marsha's been waiting until now. Jay thinks there are no fish here. He wants to change positions. Fresh off the boat, Marsha got up. The two immediately feel uncomfortable. Marsha doesn't think the reason we haven't been able to catch any fish is because these 2 high people are messing around. Took a look around at the boats. More than my own savings. There's so much competition here. It's not meant to catch any fish. If we don't go, the northwest wind doesn't even have enough to eat. Cook and his men returned to the port and began to sell fish. It seems that this fish should be very fat, but it only weighs 387 pounds. I don't think it'll fetch much. Evaluated by unscrupulous merchants. This fish is fatter. It sold for $20 a pound. They walked away with $7,740. So far, they've caught their 4th fish. The total should be more than Taylor. Dave, they waited all day for nothing. He called Paul on the intercom. Want to seek cooperation, but Paul paid no attention to him. The first season split due to conflict. There has been no settlement in season 13. It's right around here, but there has been no communication. This is so embarrassing. Jack's been waiting all day. He put a mackerel into the water. Wait for the fish to pass. When there's only one bait left, so the tuna will choose him. As weird as that sounds, soon the detector went off. A tuna appeared nearby. Suddenly, the fishing rod was jerked. Sure enough, the tuna chose the last bait. I waited a week. Finally, a tuna. It's getting dark now. Today's wait has not been in vain. It's very rough right now. The direction of the boat must match that of the crew. Otherwise, it's easy to decouple. Their fishing boats are the lowest equipped. When you pull the tuna close, he immediately attacked with a harpoon. I didn't know this fish was so strong. They almost lost this tuna. Jack guessed that the fish was very big. They lasted almost 2 hours. Everyone's energy is consumed. Fortunately, the fish was eventually brought under control. When we pull the fish up, my first feeling was that I was too fat. This fish should be fat. It's 103 inches long. Have a busy day. Go home and sell your fish. The fish on the boat makes the boat small. The buyer asked Jack to trade in a bigger boat. This is the second fish Jack has caught. The fish can weigh up to 473 pounds. It looks pretty good. The next step is the fat content of fish. This fish is low in fat. Unscrupulous merchants are offering $17 a pound. Easy haul of $8,041. The price is not high, but enough to excite this little boat. There's a lot of desperation here in Marcia. They never caught any fish. 2 crew members, one his son and one his nephew. The 2 of them have very little confidence. I think this season has been very difficult. Every time I go out before dawn. But every time there was no fish. The process of hard work not being rewarded is very desperate. Marcia could only comfort them. Another day has passed. Paul and they came across a shoal of mackerel. These are Tuna's kindergartens. Catch as much as you can. Dave, when they came here. Guess Paul was here all day yesterday. A tuna appeared nearby. Soon Paul's rod began to be yanked. The crew got to work before they even got dressed. Dave, they saw Paul fish. Instantly start to envy. The tuna kept coming down the boat. It's easy to go offline in this situation. Paul was in a hurry to fly. After some effort, they finally adjusted their direction. The next step is to wait for the tuna to burn out. The waves kept lapping at them. After a teammate pulling, the tuna has no strength. It was easily subdued by Paul. I waited 2 days for this tuna. They are quite excited. But Dave's side is different. Equal effort. Others have already made gains. At this point, they feel like eating shit. This tuna is very big. It's 107 inches. It's another morning catch. They sold fish as soon as they returned to the port. The fish looks very long. The color of the cut fish is beautiful. It weighs 440 pounds. Kind of a nice big fish. When checking the fish, shady merchants say it looks ordinary. Lots of lean meat and very little fat. That's a bad thing to hear. They offered only $14 a pound. That should be the lowest price so far. $6,160 for 440 pounds. But Paul still chose to close the deal. Dave and his crew are still waiting here. The detector never went off. Keep updating the mackerel bait. Until the bait runs out, no fish to go home. The worst part is Meisha. They never caught any fish. The weather is beginning to get bad now. Marcia was sure there would be fish here. The son and nephew did all the work. He's very casual, constantly changing the bait. Go get yourself killed. Suddenly, the detector detected tuna. This is usually the time to serve the fish. Soon the rod began to be pulled. After waiting so long, it's finally my turn. Everyone started to get excited. There's a noise from Marcia, too. A fish appeared nearby. They serve the fish, too. It's been hundreds of years, and it's finally here. Both teams fish at the same time. If I can catch them all, that must be a happy ending. This fish is very big. Dave is slowly tightening the line. The tuna keeps pulling underwater. The line was torn very badly. First fish of the season from Meisha. He treasured the opportunity. If I can't catch it, I'll probably jump into the sea. The waves are big now. They didn't bother to wear raincoats. Both teams waited for the fish to be pulled to the surface. Dave guessed the size of the fish. He can handle big or small. It's better to make money than to lose. It was difficult to pull the fish to the surface. Soon it was pulled down again. They're waiting for their chance. Once it's up, they'll bleed it. In this tense moment, make no mistake, Dave's got the tuna under control. Marcia's still harpooning. He thought it was a bobtail tuna at first. I didn't realize it was so big. When the fish swam close, Marcia managed to spear the tuna. It took about 2 weeks. I finally got my first fish. They tied the tail of the fish and dragged it. The fish made them very excited. It also gives them enough confidence. Dave here pulls the fish up, only 84 inches. They caught a 4th fish, but they're small fish. Work done a lot, but it makes very little money. And the fish on Marcia's side are smaller, only 79 inches. But it's enough to cover their costs for 2 weeks. The 2 fish are pretty much alike. The price depends on the fish fat. Dave, this fish is only 200 pounds. It's by far the lightest fish. The flesh fat of this fish is more optimistic. A lot of restaurateurs should like it. The buyer offered $18 a pound. They only managed to collect $3,600. For cost, still make a lot of money. Mesha they also returned to port. This fish of theirs is the smallest in size. At the weigh-in, I didn't know it was 246 pounds. This is definitely fatter than Dave's. It has been observed that fish contains a lot of fat. The core of the fish is also very good. He offered a high price of $23 for the fish, made $5,658. The unit price of this customer should be the highest at present. Unfortunately, the fish is a little small. Not bad for them to get off to a good start. Paul and Dave met at the harbor. They finally reached a settlement. What surprises will they bring us next? Look forward to an update in the next video.